My family, the ones I thought were the close ones, went to Switzerland without me. That's what my mom's post said. Anyway, I wasn't there, but my travel wallet was. My bank statement showed charges for 6 tickets, a 4-star hotel, and even ski rentals. My brother, who's too clueless for his own good, accidentally texted me the truth, thinking he was texting someone else. My only response was, he just did. I then proceeded to reverse every transaction and flag their IDs on the booking platform. The phone started buzzing at 6:03 a.m., minus 22 times to be exact. When I first saw my mom's post with the caption, I assumed it was a throwback. Maybe a trip I'd forgotten about from years past. But the clothes and the light looked too new. I zoomed in and saw it. James was wearing the hoodie I bought him last Christmas. Snow looked fresh. My dad was in his loud red parka. That's when it hit me. This wasn't old. I scrolled through the comments. A family friend asked if the Alps were as beautiful as they looked. My cousin commented, "Wow, Switzerland, living the dream." Then, I saw my aunt's comment. "Surprised Selena isn't there with you guys?" No one replied. I'd seen them just 3 weeks earlier. I'd brought up a small trip to Oregon, maybe a weekend in a cabin with some hiking and hot springs. My parents seemed uncomfortable. Mom said money was tight, and James mumbled something about exams. I ended up paying for lunch that day, which seemed to be a recent pattern. A few days later, my dad called and asked me to keep the emergency credit card active just in case. I said sure, trusting them completely. They'd never pulled anything like this before. But now I was looking at a photo of them in Zermatt with 2 strangers, so I thought at first. Then I realized they were my parents' friends, Steve and Donna. They were the kind of people who snuck liquor into weddings and started fights. During karaoke, they weren't family. Neither was James' girlfriend, who appeared in another shot, sticking her tongue out on a ski lift. I opened my banking app without knowing what to expect. 6 tickets from San Francisco to Zurich. Over $8,700 in charges, all within 2 days. 4-star hotels in Interlaken, train rides, ski rentals, fondue reservations, and even a hot air balloon tour. All on my emergency card, which had a $9,000 limit. They'd maxed it out. I just sat there, stunned, not angry yet, until James' text popped up. He meant to send it to someone else. Lol. Stared at the message for a solid minute, then typed back. He just did. And then I got to work. Spent the next 2 hours on the phone. I reversed every possible transaction and flagged their IDs on the booking platform. They had used my travel wallet account. I had access to all the receipts, passport photos, and numbers. I even sent a fraud notice to the ski resort with a copy of my ID. The cancellation started immediately. I told my bank the card had been stolen by someone I knew, which wasn't a lie. When I finished, I had 0 liability and 5 frozen accounts. Their hotel was gone. Their ski passes, gone. Rental van, gone. Even their dinner at the Mountaintop Revolving Restaurant was canceled then. At 6:03 a.m., my phone buzzed 22 times. I ignored the first 3 calls from Mom, the 5 from James, the 1 from Steve's burner number, and all of Dad's. But when Dad called again at 7:41 a.m., I answered. "Selena, we need $4,200 to fly back to San Francisco. Can you just help us for now?" he asked. "No," I replied. A long silence followed. "I hope you enjoy the rest of your time there," I said. "You'll have a lot to explain when you get back. Trouble's already waiting." Then I hung up. I wanted them to feel it. They would be back in 2 days. James had his own money. He could pay for once. But I wasn't finished. Asterisk, they landed in San Francisco early Thursday morning. I didn't need flight tracking. Mrs. Langley, my parents' neighbor, is a human ring camera. Her message came at 6:12 a.m. They're back. Suitcases looked trashed. "Your dad's limping." No one smiled. "Thought you should know." I was already dressed. I arrived at their house at 6:41 a.m. Donna was screaming into her phone, barefoot in the driveway. Steve looked like he'd been punched while hungover. James was dragging a broken Samsonite suitcase up the steps while his girlfriend sat on it, too tired or entitled to help. My parents stood by the door, like they were waiting to be sentenced. I didn't say hello, parked across the street, walked up, and got straight to the point. You owe me $4,000 in non-refundable charges. You have 3 days to pay it back. Mom just blinked, as if she didn't understand. Dad tried to speak, but I silenced him by pulling out my phone and opening a folder titled Fraud Docs. It had screenshots of every transaction, dates, times, their names, their faces on hotel check-in records, passport scans, and even their ski itinerary. All from my travel wallet. They had gone through my entire digital life, my saved documents, and stored passwords to book a luxury European vacation. Then had the nerve to post it like they'd won a sweepstakes. James stepped forward. This is insane. You're blowing it way out of proportion. I turned to him. You lied to my face, excluded me, took my money, and then called me dumb in a text meant for someone else. He scoffed. Was supposed to be a trip for people who actually know how to relax. You wouldn't have fit in. Yeah, I gathered that from the Instagram caption. Just us. The close ones. His girlfriend muttered something under her breath. I didn't care. I shifted my focus back to my parents. You borrowed my trust and turned it into theft. I froze everything and reversed what I could. But I'm still out $4,000. You will get that money back to me, or I'll involve legal. That got their attention. Mom began a soft apology, the kind that never really lands, but I cut her off. You? Used Steve and Donna's names on the bookings. That's impersonation. You had no right to do any of this. 3 days, don't call, don't text, pay. Then I left. By the end of the day, they'd scraped up the money. Uncle Mark came through, though I heard later he gave James an hour-long lecture that ended with, "You're lucky I don't send you to rehab. Just for being this stupid." The money was wired to me that night with no subject line or message. I archived the folder and went to bed. I slept like a rock. Asterisk the next morning. James was waiting outside my building. No text, no warning. He just stood there, expecting a sitcom-style resolution. You ruined the trip for everyone, he said. I leaned against the railing. You didn't invite me. You could have handled it quietly. Y'all excluded me, lied about. Why? Used me. And then hoped I wouldn't notice. Now what? Sympathy. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. You act like you're better than everyone else. I didn't reply because I am. He left with a bitter look on his face and no apology. He had a bigger problem coming. I had been paying his tuition for 1.5 years. For the next semester, he was on his own. I didn't announce it. I just logged into the university portal, went to the finance section, removed my card, disabled autopay, and closed the tab. He probably thought I had forgotten. The deadline passed quietly. A week later, the system flagged his unpaid balance of $6,042. A hold was placed on his account, blocking registration and portal access. All he got was a polite email. Your enrollment has been suspended due to non-payment. That's when the silence broke. James texted first, casually, "Hey, I think tuition didn't go through. Something glitched. Can you check it?" I left him. On read. Next came the calls, which I ignored. Then a voicemail, half concerned, half demanding. "Can you just take care of this today, please? My labs are starting soon." Not a single word about what he had done. He just assumed the money would keep flowing. Then Mom tried, leaving 3 voicemails. The last one was nearly 5 minutes long, starting calm, then rambling about forgiveness, and how families make mistakes, and how I needed to stop letting money define me. That line stuck with me. Money defines you. Like I hadn't spent years covering their rent when Dad was out of work. Like I hadn't dropped 5 figures on James' tuition last year while working weekends to keep up. They didn't mind money when I was their personal ATM. A day later, Dad messaged me. I understand. Do what you have to do. It landed differently, but it didn't change anything. Then James tried again. You're seriously not paying? I replied, correct. Next call came in hot. You're a joke, Selena. You're ruining my future over a vacation. That's how small you are. No, I said. I'm holding you accountable. That's how tired I am. You don't get it. I need this semester. I'm already behind. I didn't ask you to book ski trips with my card or post about it while pretending I didn't exist. Jesus, you're bitter. You're a thief. There was a pause. Then he said something I'll never forget. You were never family. You were a wallet. You just don't like being empty now. I hung up. 3 days later, my aunt, whom I'm not even close with, texted me. She said I should be ashamed because James was family and that I should have handled it privately. I didn't respond. Then came a cousin, then another. Someone even emailed me an article about financial boundaries and grace. They didn't know the half of it. That Sunday, I got up early and drove to my parents' house. I knocked, but no one answered, which I expected. The spare keys were still hanging on a rack in the garage. I took them and drove off in the silver Civic I'd given them last year. At the time, I had 2 cars and they were always borrowing rides, so I thought it was a kind gesture. Now, I was just restoring order. The Civic was mine again. I sat in my driveway for a minute, the engine still running. No one called or texted. I guess they finally understood. You don't get to spend years treating someone like a safety. Net and then cry betrayal when they cut the rope. They thought I was bluffing, but this wasn't poker. It was the bill coming due. 3 weeks had passed since the tuition bomb. Not a word from James. The silence was suspicious. My guess was he was scrambling for another handout or hoping I'd eventually cave. But he didn't wait. A call came in on a Thursday afternoon from an unknown number. Hi, is this Selena Palmer? Yes, this is Jenna from Student Accounts at Selledge University. We've been trying to reach you about an unpaid tuition balance. You're listed as the financial guarantor for James Palmer. My stomach dropped. There must be a mistake. I never agreed to that. She paused. We have a signed form on file with your name and signature. I'd like to see it. She mailed it to me. I opened the PDF. There it was, my name, my address, my phone number, and a forged signature that almost, but not quite, looked like mine. The box checked next to assumes financial responsibility in the event of non-payment hit harder than any insult. I felt cold. James hadn't just taken advantage of me. He had forged a legal document. I called her back immediately and filed a fraud claim, sending my ID, real signature samples, and screenshots of messages with James. She said the matter would be investigated, but until it was resolved, I was considered responsible. If it wasn't cleared, the debt would hit my credit. This was beyond betrayal. This was war. I didn't call James, not yet. I needed someone who would understand the weight of this. That weekend, I drove to my grandfather's house. He'd always been distant from the family drama, no fake smiles or guilt trips, just quiet judgment and a solid memory. I brought the forged document, sat down at his tiny kitchen table, and laid it out. He read it slowly, then looked up and asked, "Did you already report it?" He nodded once, stood up, went to the back room, and returned with a small lockbox I'd never seen. He unlocked it, pulled out a folded deed, and handed it to me. It was for the family lake cabin, a place I hadn't been to since I was 13. "I'm giving this to you," he said. "No one else deserves it. I'll call my lawyer on Monday." I just sat there holding the deed, unsure how to react. He'd never given anyone in the family anything like that before. Then he added, "I always knew you were the only one who'd grow up." Asterisk on the way home, James finally broke the silence. I saw his name on my screen and let it ring twice before. Answering, "I need you to stop," I said. "I know you told the school. You forged my name." "I had no choice, Selena. I thought you'd be cool about it, like always. Cool about fraud." "It's $6,000. You could have just paid it." "I could have, but you made sure I wouldn't want to." There was a pause. Then he changed the subject. "I'm going to get kicked out. I can't register. They're threatening collections." "Are you seriously going to leave me hanging like this?" "Yes. You're heartless." "No, I just finally got tired of being your insurance policy." He hung up with no dramatic insult. Just silence. An hour later, Mom called. Her message started soft. "I know things are bad between you and James. Okay, but we can't believe you're letting this destroy everything." Then it turned bitter. "You're acting like we're strangers." "No, I thought you made me a stranger the moment. You booked flights to Switzerland with my card and captioned it, 'Just the close ones.' Then a cousin I hadn't spoken to in a year texted me. He said I was turning into a real disappointment and that I used to be so generous. He said I was changing. Maybe I was." The next day, I went to my parents' house and walked in through the garage. I grabbed the Civic keys off the hook and drove the car home. It was still in my name anyway. No one stopped me. No one said anything. I guess they finally realized I was done. And the woman they saw as a safety net was about to become the biggest problem they'd ever created by the end of the month. James was officially out. No classes, no re-registration, no backup plan. Confirmed it by checking the universities. Public directory, his name was gone. I expected more drama, but everything went eerily quiet. Then, slowly, something unexpected happened. People started to switch sides. My mom was still furious, sending cold clipped texts about how disappointed she was, but her tone was different, less powerful, less controlling. Cousins, aunts, even family friends I thought were against me started reaching out. At first, they just asked what really happened. Then they started telling me things I never knew. One cousin said my mom had already asked her husband to co-sign a loan for James. Another said my parents had considered refinancing the house, blaming me for their tough spot. Most surprisingly, one of James's own friends messaged me on Instagram. "Just wanted to say I get why you cut him off. He left out a lot, but we figured it out. You're not the bad guy, Selena. Honestly, we're all kind of impressed." It was surreal then. A call from my grandfather's lawyer. The lake cabin transfer was finalized, but he added something unexpected. "Your grandfather updated his will last week. He's removed your parents and James as beneficiaries. He said he no longer trusts them. He named you sole inheritor on his side." I never asked for any of this, but my grandfather had seen enough. He'd watched everything unfold quietly and drawn his own conclusions. That same weekend, I drove to the cabin. It was quiet, isolated, and a little rough around the edges. But it felt untouched, a place where people didn't shout or lie or steal credit cards. I sat on the back porch for an hour, just staring at the lake. I hadn't felt that calm in years. When I got back, my dad was waiting outside my apartment. "I just wanted to talk," he said. "Not to fix anything, just to be honest." I let him speak. He admitted they'd crossed a line, that they'd relied on me too much and allowed James to feel entitled. He said that even though he hadn't agreed with my initial actions, he saw it now. "You were right to draw the line." He reached out his hand, and I shook it. There wasn't much else to say. Later that night, I got a message from James. "All you had to do was help like before. You destroyed everything." I read it once, then again. Then I archived the thread and moved on. Because by now, everyone understood what I had known for a long time. I wasn't the problem. I was just the only one willing to stop being a part of it. Asterisk, it's been a year since Switzerland. Since the text that lit the fuse, since I took back every dollar, shut off every faucet, and let the bridge burn. James never paid me back. Not a cent. But he never asked for another either. He's working full-time now in a warehouse. Something with night shifts. Not glamorous, not what he planned, but honest and quiet. My parents still haven't truly apologized. They circled the idea, asking how I am and sending unsigned birthday cards. As if small gestures could fix something so deeply broken. I don't chase it or ignore it. I just let it be. The family talks about me differently now. Not as a cold person, but as someone who did what they wish they had the courage to do. Boundaries, it turns out, are contagious. 2 cousins have stopped lending money to their parents. Another left a toxic family group chat, and I've stopped explaining myself. I used to narrate every decision and soften every truth just to keep the peace. Now I just say no or nothing at all, letting the silence work its magic. Sometimes peace isn't soft. Sometimes it's as heavy as a locked door or walking away. But it's still peace. It's strange to lose so much and feel more whole afterward. I don't miss the calls that came with strings attached. I don't miss being someone's backup plan. I don't miss being needed so much that I disappeared in the process. The lake cabin has become a monthly ritual. I open the windows, light a fire, and walk the shoreline. I don't bring guests. The quiet doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like proof that I survived them. That I survived being turned into a utility, a backup, a bank account with a face. I look back with clarity, not regret. They were never going to stop taking until I stopped giving, and I did. Maybe a little too late, maybe just in time, a few weeks ago. I ran into my aunt at the grocery store, the one who said I should be ashamed for what I did to James. This time, she just gave a tight nod and a soft, awkward hey. I nodded back and kept moving. Shh, you can. Tell when someone's story about you has changed behind your back. When they've shifted from, she went too far, to maybe she had a point, that's fine. I don't need vindication. I just need peace. Every time I get in my car and know no one else has a key. Every time I check my accounts and see my own name, not someone else's debt. Every time I say no and don't explain, I know I'm not bitter. I'm free. I sometimes wonder if they talk about it, if they replay their choices or just blame me because it's cleaner that way. Maybe they say I've changed, that I got cold, selfish, or too proud. But I didn't change. I just hit the edge of what I was willing to tolerate. And when I didn't bend, they called it betrayal. I call it a boundary. The truth is, they weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing access to me. And once that access was cut, they had to actually see me, not the helpful daughter. Not the generous sister, not the reliable safety net. It's just me. And they didn't like what they saw because it meant they had to take responsibility. James used to text me weekly with updates to keep the money flowing. After everything, not a single update. It's not my job to ask. That's what they never understood. Helping isn't a personality, it's a choice, and I'm allowed to stop choosing it. Mom still sends holiday messages, warm but empty, no apology. Just soft edges around a hard silence. She'll mention a new baby or a cousin moving, then slide in a, "We'd love to see you sometime." I don't respond, not because I'm cruel, but because I'm healed. Healed people don't re-enter the fire just to prove they're fireproof. I used to think forgiveness meant opening the door again. Now I know sometimes it means quietly locking it and walking away. Some people only knew the version of you they could drain. They don't get to meet the one who finally filled herself back up last week. A handwritten letter arrived with no return address. I knew the handwriting, James. It was short 3 paragraphs. He said he was working full-time, still in the warehouse trying to get back to school. He didn't ask for money or help. He just said he hoped I was doing well and that he meant what he said about paying me back. I read it twice, then folded it and tucked it into a file. Not because I needed to keep it, but because I didn't want to throw it away yet. Some wounds scar, some stay open, and some fade like bruises. You almost forget until something brushes up against them. I still think about the trip, the photo, the caption, just the close ones. I used to replay those words like a taunt. Now, I hear them differently. They meant it. They just didn't realize who the close ones actually were until I stopped being one of them. I used to wonder if I was the villain in their story, but I only had control over my own. And in my story, I stopped letting love be a transaction. I stopped letting family be a free pass for mistreatment. I stopped handing out pieces of myself. Just to keep others comfortable, the lake cabin still stands. The water is clearer now. The silence is deeper. The air is lighter. I bring a book, sit with my coffee, and let the wind tangle my hair. No noise, no guilt, no pretending. Just me, Selena. Not the wallet, not the fixer, not the one they leaned on until she collapsed. Just a woman who learned the cost of peace and decided she was worth it.